All right, this is Algebra 1B, Part 1, Unit 5, Lesson 5, solving quadratic equations using common factors. We're going to look at a couple of examples where we factor to write a product that equals 0. And as you learned in the last lesson, if two numbers multiply to make 0, one of them must be 0. And we can solve two equations to get both solutions for the quadratic. Let me give you our first example here. 16x squared plus 24x plus 24x. Let's clean that up. Equals 0. Okay, what I'm going to do is called factoring the greatest common factor. I'm going to notice that 16 is 2 times 8, and 24 is 3 times 8. So 8 is a common factor in both cases, plus there's an x in both of them. So I'm going to write 8x in front. And now I'm going to divide. 16 divided by 8 is 2. X squared divided by x is x. 24 divided by 8 is 3. X divided by x is 1, so it's gone. Okay, let me show you another way to do that if you didn't follow that. You can write each of these as a product of prime numbers. 16 is 2 times 8. 8 is 2 times 4. 4 is 2 times 3, or 2 times 2. So 8 literally, or 16 literally is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the 4th power. And then x squared is x times x. Okay? 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. So 24 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, and then times x. And look for, if you're looking for the greatest common factor, you'll look for factors that are in both lists. A 2, a 2, a 2, and an x. Okay, and what's left ununderlined here is 2 and x and 3. Okay, and you'll notice that 2 times 2 times 2 is 8x and 2x plus 3. So that's another way to do the same thing. Then, of course, we set each factor equal to 0 as we learned in the last lesson. 8x equals 0, or 2x plus 3 equals 0. I solve by undoing. The opposite of times 8 is divide 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 1 times x is x. 0 divided by 8 is 0. Then I subtract 3 from both sides of the other equation. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Then I divide by 2. And x is negative 3 halves. X is negative 3 halves. So the solution set is x equals, solution set 0 and negative 3 halves. Okay. All right, so that's by factoring what we call the greatest common factor. I'm going to look at another example that's considerably different than this. And let's go ahead and I'm going to walk through how to do it. Go ahead and walk through these, write down the problem and walk through these steps with me as I do them. X squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. Now you'll notice there is no way I can get a common factor out of all of this. There's no number that divides evenly into 1, 5, and 14, so no common factor there. 14 doesn't have an x, so I can't factor out an x. But here's what I do. I list the things that multiply to make 14. 14 is 1 times 14 and 2 times 7. And then I look for a difference of 5. They need to subtract to make 5. Well, 14 minus 1 is 13, 7 minus 2 is 5. How do they make a negative 5? Well, if the 2 is positive and the 7 is negative, 2 plus negative 7 or 2 minus 7. I'm going to say 2 plus negative 7. The trick is this. I'm going to break this middle term up into the sum plus 2x minus 7x. Those together make negative 5x. Then I'm going to write the rest of the equation around it. X squared plus 2x minus 7x minus 14 equals 0. Okay? And this next step is called factoring by grouping. So I'm going to look at the first two terms. X squared and x. There is an x in both of those, so I'm going to factor out an x. And what's left? X squared divided by x is x. 2x divided by x is 2. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the last two terms. Remember, minus 7x is the same as plus and negative 7x. So negative 7 and then 14. 14 is 2 times 7, so there's a common factor of 7 in both of those. So I'm going to say minus 7. So I'm going to factor out a negative 7. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1x. Negative 14 divided by negative 7 is positive 2. Okay, and now notice something. Notice that there is an x plus 2 in both terms. So I'm going to factor that out. Factor that out. Factor out the x plus 2 out of both. What's left when I factor it out is x minus 7, and then I took out the x plus 2. Okay, there we go. We've got a product, or a pair of binomials that multiply to make x squared minus 5x minus 14. Now we solve by using the zero product property. Either x minus 7 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. And then I solve by adding 7 to both sides and subtracting 2 to both sides. Let's do both at once here. So x equals 7 or x equals negative 2. Solution set. Negative 2 or 7 listed in order. Okay. All right, so that's the way to do it by regrouping, or factoring by regrouping. So let's go ahead and do another one, a little bit harder this time. Okay. This one's going to be harder because it's going to have a leading coefficient, the number in front of the x squared that is not just 1. 6x squared plus 22x plus 20 equals 0. The difference between this and the previous one is I multiply 6 and, actually before I multiply 6 and 20, look for a greatest common factor. I almost forgot to do that. They're all even, and that's a good indicator that there's a common factor. So I can at least divide out 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Okay? And now, I think they leave this here, they leave the 2 there. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. It won't change the solution to the problem, but it'll simplify things. The 2 just cancels or disappears. This is the same as solving 3x squared plus 11x plus 10 equals 0 divided by 2, or 0. So the 2 is just gone. We could also have thought of dividing every term by 2 if we wanted to. Okay, so now what I do here is I think of the product of the first and the last coefficients, the 3 and the 10. 3 times 10 is 30, and I think of all things that multiply to make 30. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6. And I look for a sum of 11. 1 plus 30 is 31, 2 plus 15 is 17, 3 plus 10 is 13, 5 plus 6 is 11. So that's the one I'm going to choose. I'm going to rewrite 11x as 5x plus 6x. So 11x becomes 5x plus 6x. And write the rest of the problem down. 3x squared plus 5x plus 6x plus 10 equals 0. And now we factor by grouping. Look for a common factor between 3x squared and 5x. Well, there's x in both of them. No common factor between 3 and 5, but there is an x. X squared divided by x is x, so this is 3x. X divided by x cancels the x out, leaving 5. Okay, look for a common factor in 6x and 10. They are 2, and that's about it. So 2, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now you realize, by the way, that you're stuck if you don't have a common factor between the two, but we've got both binomials being the same. 3x plus 5, 3x plus 5. So we're going to factor out a 3x plus 5, leaving x plus 2 times 3x plus 5 equals 0. So using the zero product property, either x plus 2, wrong color here, x plus 2 equals 0, or 3x plus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Going to do both at once since I've got them up here. X equals negative 2, or 3x equals negative 5. I can divide both sides of this one by 3. And so x equals 5/3, or 1 2/3. So the solution set, x equals negative 2, or 5/3. Okay. All right, and that's about as hard as they get.